Welcome to my September reading wrap-up. You may be thinking, isn't it almost the end of October? And yes, it totally is. We're just gonna breeze past that. I've clearly filmed this way too late, but these are the 30 books that I read in September. Really great view, thanks Onyx. I actually started September on a very high note. I read Gone Tonight by Sarah Pekkanen, and this is my first book of hers. Oh my goodness, Onyx. Sneak peek at what my TikToks are like because he always has to be in front of the camera. This is about a mother-daughter pair who are very, almost weirdly close. They have no other family, and the daughter has just finished nursing school, and she accepted a job that's a little bit farther away, so she is moving out of her mother's house for the first time in her entire life. Her mother does not like this, so we're going to see what she'll do to make this girl stay, and crazy stuff starts happening. We learn some backstory about these individuals. This is very good. I actually really like this. I gave this 4.5 stars. Next up, we have the first ever Tessa Bailey book that I read. This is It Happened One Summer. I thought this was really fun. It does have a fisherman main character, and I'm not a fan of fishing, so just because of that, I don't think I loved it as much as I could have, just because I wasn't the biggest fan of this guy, but I gave this one 4 stars. I will say I have since read another Tessa Bailey, and I loved it so much, so I can't wait to read more of hers. Her writing is very good. The books are very spicy, just a heads up. Then I read Legends and Lattes. I've been doing a tandem buddy read with my fiance with this one, so we've been reading this for over a month, and we finally finished it. We were listening on audio and reading some of it physically. It was very good. I gave this 4 stars. I don't drink coffee. I've never had coffee, so I feel like I missed some of this book because there's so many times where it's in-depth descriptions of coffee. Obviously the centers around a coffee shop, so there were times that I felt like maybe I was missing out because I didn't really understand what they were talking about, but overall it's really cute. It's a very good low stakes fantasy. I definitely enjoyed this one. Next up, I read Just Another Missing Person by Jillian McAllister, and I thought this was very solid. I did end up giving this one 3.5 stars. I did have some issues with the way this book ended and some of the twists in the book, but it was overall very fun. It's about this woman who walks into a dead-end alley. She's seen on CCTV footage to walk in, but she never exits, and so it's about what happened to this person. It's also about the cop who's being blackmailed to try to pin this crime on somebody specifically, and it's very good. It's very fast-paced. Again, my only really issue is just I didn't love the direction this book went. Next up, I read my second ever Karen Slaughter, and that is After That Night. I was a little hesitant going into this because a lot of people told me not to read this book because it is part of a large series, the Will Trent series, and I had never read any of that series before, but I actually don't think you need to. This can 100% be read as a standalone. If I didn't know it was a series already, I wouldn't have known by picking this book up because it gives all of the necessary background you need on these characters. I definitely get that if you knew these characters super well, maybe you'd get even more enjoyment out of it, but I don't even know because I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely adored this. I love Karen Slaughter's writing. I have rated 2 of her books 5 stars now. They're so good. They're very dark though, so check your triggers before you read them, but very good. I loved this so much. Then we read 40 Words for Love, and this one was a bit of a letdown. This is just a YA fantasy book. I thought the magic system was really not fleshed out as much as it should have been. I wanted more from it. Overall, it felt kind of flat. I didn't feel a lot of investment into these characters' love story. It was okay. I think I'd give it some 3 stars. Sticking with the just okay, I also read Cloak of Scarlet, and I wanted to like this. This is supposed to be a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, and I just didn't. It was kind of bizarre. I didn't really see much Little Red Riding Hood in this book, a little bit, but not a whole lot. And it was kind of a strange book because it's not a religious book, but just randomly throughout the book there'd be just a random sentence thrown in about a Bible verse, and it wasn't interwoven into the story in a way that made a lot of sense. I think the author was just trying to drop in some religion into the book, and I don't mind that, but I think it needs to be woven into the story correctly and make sense, and it just felt very there, and it was very strange. I think I give this one 2.75 stars or 2.5 stars. It's not my favorite. Would I recommend it? Probably not. It is a very short read, so if you're looking for just a short, quick read, it's okay. Just nothing spectacular. And then I absolutely adored Carrie Soda is back. This is my 3rd or 4th Taylor Jenkins Reid book now, and this one's my favorite now. It took the cake from Malibu Rising. This is my 4th because I read Malibu Rising, Seven Husbands, and also Daisy Jones. So this is my 4th one. It's my favorite, but I will say if you don't like tennis, you might not be interested in this. This is a historical fiction just about this girl who was a tennis star, and she retired from tennis. Somebody's currently trying to take her world record, and she decides to make a comeback many years after retiring and try to take back her record. And I just thought this book was so interesting. I did listen to this one on audio, and I thought the audiobook was excellently done. Highly recommend if you like tennis. If you don't, go in knowing it's literally just a sports historical fiction, but very fun. Highly recommend. Then I read A Haunting in Venice. This is the remake of Halloween Party, and I thought this was okay. It's definitely not my favorite Agatha Christie. I actually have that later on as my favorite book of hers I've ever read. This one was just meh. I gave it some 3.5 stars. I also wasn't a huge fan of the movie. I went and saw that, and it was also just meh. I think this one's definitely a pass. If you're going to pick up an Agatha Christie, probably pick up a different one, but it was alright. Then I was actually on a reading retreat in Florida with some friends, and I read this book called Summer Rental, and it was like perfect for that because this is about this group of friends who just graduated high school, and they go and do a summer rental house in Florida to celebrate before they all go on their separate ways. There's a hurricane, it storms them in, and people start getting picked off. This is supposed to be like Mean Girls meets Scream, so it's like a horror slasher book too. This is really fun. I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars. My only wish was that some of the like more horror elements started earlier because I kept like wanting it to get started, and it didn't get started till like the last probably third of the book. But overall, I definitely recommend this. It was a very fun read. And then another 5-star read we have is Love Theoretically. I love Ali Hazelwood's writing. She is tied for my favorite romance author of all time. Her books have all been phenomenal, and this one was no exception. I will say it is a lot slower of a burn. Like, this book is a lot larger than most of hers. It is just about 400 pages, and it takes a while to get into it, but the payoff is so good. I highly recommend. Loved this one so much. And then I also loved The Drowning Woman. I was driving on my way home from Florida. It's a 17-hour ride, and the hours that I spent listening to this flew by, which immediately made me give it 5 stars because the other audiobooks I had been listening to were good, but they weren't like making the time go fast. This one made my drive go so quickly. I thought it was so good. It's just so unique of a premise. It's called The Drowning Woman, and I had never read a book by this author, but it's about this woman who finds herself homeless. She's never like been in this situation before. She's trying to claw her way out of it, but right now she's living out of her car. She goes to her spot for the night, and she witnesses this person trying to unalive themselves in the water, and she goes and saves them. This person she saves ends up being like this really wealthy and influential woman who ends up kind of helping her. They become an unlikely pairing of friends, and this book just took so many turns, and it was so fun. I definitely recommend this one. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but this one was also 5 stars for me. Then I read Mr. Magic, which was honestly kind of bizarre. I liked this book, but I didn't love it. It took a weird twist where this book, even though it doesn't like say this is what it's about in the blurb, this book is actually about this author's like religious trauma, leaving the Mormon church, and I feel like I wish I knew that going in because I thought this was just a thriller, but like very clearly when you read the book has that background behind it, and it was overall a fun ride. I still have a lot of questions because the book doesn't like totally make sense in the end. I think I give this 3.5 stars. It was enjoyable but very strange, and again I still have questions, which is not my favorite. I like when a book wraps up and makes sense and then I know what happens and then we're good, but this one is not that. Then I read Dawn Shard by Brandon Sanderson. This is my last Stormlight book before Stormlight 5 comes out, and I'm so sad about that. This was so good. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I love these novellas. They're amazing. I couldn't decide. Like, I kept going back and forth whether I like Dawn Shard or Edge Dancer better. I don't even know still. I loved them both. I don't like them obviously as much as the main books in the Stormlight Archive, but can't go wrong with any of them. I definitely loved this one too. And then I read Book Lovers, which is my favorite Emily Henry of the month, and I love Emily Henry too, so I gave this one 5 stars. So good, such a cute romance. I still think about these characters, and this is a book about books, which I always love, so I highly recommend this one if you're into romance. And then next up I read Dark Corners. I'm so not cut out for YouTube. I talk way too fast and need to like take breaks to breathe, and that's not what this platform is, so I'll get better one day. But this one is okay. I really didn't love this, and I should have known that going in because this is the author of Night Swim, and I didn't love Night Swim, so I'm not even sure why I picked this on Book of the Month because I knew I probably wouldn't like it, but the premise sounded so good, and it still was just the same as Night Swim. I gave it 3 stars. It's fine. I'm in the minority. Most people love this. I just don't think this author's writing style like works with me. It just doesn't keep me as engaged and interested in the storyline, so you'll probably like this if you like thrillers. I just personally didn't. And then here is one of the highlights. I read The Murder on the Orient Express. This is my favorite Agatha Christie ever now, and I read this tandem read with this and the graphic novel. So I read like a section of this book and then I'd read the same section in the graphic novel, and it felt like watching like the movie right after reading the book, and it was so good. If you just are a graphic novel person and this has like the exact same story, you don't really need to do what I did, but so good. I loved this. This was one of those books that once the twist was revealed, I felt super dumb because it made total sense, but it like literally never once crossed my mind, and it was just so much fun. Highly recommend both of these. Then another disappointment, I read Milk and Honey, and I was so shocked because I love poetry, but this was like, did not work for me at all. I gave this one 2 stars. I don't know if I mentioned this was 5 stars for me, but this one just like, I got cut off there, but these almost like don't qualify as poems to me. Like, I know the poems don't have to be long, but they're like 2 lines. Like it's very short. They don't really like do anything for me. I think they're meant for a younger audience. This person was, I think, 21 when she wrote this. I'm old by now, so maybe it just doesn't work for me at this age. But like, I just wanted more than a couple of words per page that didn't land for me. I know most people adore this book so much. I just kept reading it and being so confused at like what the hype was with this. I even like gave it to my fiance and he agreed, but I don't know, I guess I'm just not the target audience for this. I know most people love it. Don't hate on me for this opinion. Then I read My Name is Iris, and this book had so much potential. This is like a dystopian sci-fi novel, and I really wanted to love it a little bit more than I did. It is a very confusing book, kind of like Mr. Magic. It left a lot of questions for me, but also I listened to this one on audio, and this book has a large amount of untranslated Spanish in it, and I wish I spoke Spanish, but I do not speak Spanish, so that was confusing for me because doing it on audio meant I couldn't like easily look up the translation. I should have read this on text, and then I could have Google translated those sentences that were in Spanish, but overall it was still good. I think I gave this one 3 stars or 3.5 stars. Part of the issue with filming these so late, like a month later, is I barely remember my rating of these books. But I do remember I loved The Summer of Broken Rules. I know I gave this one 4.25 stars. It was so good. This is a YA romance book, but it had so much depth to it. It did have like topics of grief. She lost her brother recently, and it was just amazing. I really loved this, and I can't wait to read the other books of hers. I have a couple more now, and this was just so good. We're getting towards the end. We have a few more. Next up I read How Can I Help You? And this was like a really short, fun thriller, a very unique premise, has some taboo topics, but it was really fun. I gave this one 4 stars. Not groundbreaking in any way, but it was enjoyable. And then I read In Order to Live, which was my nonfiction pick for this month, and this was amazing. This is a woman's story of how she escaped North Korea as a child, and it's so good. I love this so much. I was so inspired by this story. Definitely recommend this one. And then I read Mistborn, which also phenomenal. I gave this one 5 stars. I love this book so much. When somebody dies like 3/4 of the way through, I'm not going to say who it is because of spoilers, obviously, but I wanted to throw this book on my wall. I was so mad at it. I told my fiance this will not get 5 stars because of that person being dead, and he was like, no, just you wait, and he's right. It's so good. I'm currently reading, since we're like a month later, I'm currently reading the 2nd book in the series, and it's so good too, so highly recommend this. It's not quite as good as Stormlight for me yet, but Stormlight's probably always going to have a special place in my heart because it's my first Brandon Sanderson that I ever read, so I love this though. I can't wait to read the rest of the series. Next up I read a cozy mystery. This is Dead to Rights, and it was really fun. I think like halfway through I started to get a little bit bored with the characters. I wanted there to be a little bit more to the story, but it's a cozy mystery, so that's kind of what you get. It's kind of my own fault there, but overall enjoyed it. I think I gave it some 3.5 stars. And then Yellow Face was so good. My only complaint with this is that if you've read like the inside blurb, or if you've heard what this book is about, you've pretty much read the whole story. Like not a whole lot happened outside of what I knew was already going to happen, so it was really enjoyable. It probably would have been 5 stars if I hadn't like known what it was about going in, but since I didn't go in blind, I gave this 4.5 stars because I kind of knew everything that was going to happen in here. I'm not going to talk too much about Twisted Love because I'm still confused. It was a book I read. I don't know if I enjoyed it. I don't know if I didn't enjoy it. I gave it 2.5 stars, I think, just to be right in the middle. I really don't have strong opinions either way. It was a book that I read. I don't really know. Do with that what you will. I did enjoy The River We Remember. It was my first William Kent Kruger. It won't be my last. I liked it and I gave it 3.75 stars. And then I didn't really love Fall of Rowan and Wrath. It's a romantasy and it was like way heavy on the romance side and very light on like actual fantasy plot. And I kind of prefer that to be reversed. Like I don't mind romance in my fantasy books, but I don't need it to be like literally just their romance story. But I know that this will be some people's like favorite book. It just wasn't like up my alley. And then I ended this month on a confusing note with 19 Steps. This is Millie Bobby Brown's book, and I actually really liked the plot. I gave it 4.5 stars, but then I found out later it's written by a ghostwriter, which is inside. It does say really small script right here with Kathleen McGurl, but I feel like that should be on the outside. She didn't like physically write this book, and I know a lot of people had a lot of issues with that. There's also some like situations with the story behind this book. Millie Bobby Brown claiming it's her family history, and the person she's claiming this book is about was actually like 4 when this World War happened, so I don't really know. The rating was 4.5 stars. Do with the other information what you will and do your own research to see if you're okay with that, but overall the rating was very good. And that was everything. I'm not going to try to pick up 30 books right now, but it was overall obviously an incredible month. I read a lot of 5-star books and a lot of books that were just so phenomenal. October has been a really amazing month too so far. I'll do my wrap up hopefully on time at the beginning of November, but we'll see what happens. Also, thank you for being patient with me as I figure out YouTube, because this is like the most confusing social media platform ever. I understand TikTok super well, and YouTube is like a whole new world. So thanks for sticking with me. Content will improve as I go along, but I appreciate the support so far.